It's double viewing time! Hey everybody, my name is MeisterBloo, and welcome back to my show where I take a look at an episode of an anime and give my thoughts on it. Today I am continuing on with the series The Fruit of Grisaia, and because I was lazy and I was in a mood last weekend, so I didn't sit down and watch the episode that was released last weekend, I decided that I'm going to do a double whammy this time around. Watch both the episodes, the episode that I missed last weekend and the episode that just came out this morning, and do one video on those two. I will do the same thing again tomorrow for when supernatural battles became commonplace. I just got done watching episode 4 of The Fruit of Grisaia, and my god, this episode hit me like a truck. The main focus of the episode is on Michiru, the blonde-haired twin-tail girl, and my god, I have a completely different view of what this show might be trying to do than what I originally thought. I no longer think it's going to go in the direction of this is going to be ending up like a gritty horror type of thing, or a gritty, spooky, sad kind of thing where everyone starts dying left, right, and center. I don't have that expectation anymore. This episode made me feel like it's going to go more towards a katawa shoujo direction with it, in which these characters aren't like all psychotic people. They all have different like disorders going on with them, that kind of thing. And if it goes in that direction, that'll be really cool. This episode, and again, I put the spoiler thing up because it's what this particular part of this show does, is spoils. This episode talks about Michiru. This episode gets us to know who she is. Better than the other characters, I think, because the other characters, yeah, we got to know their personalities and everything, but we never really got, like, why are they like that? Michiru, we pretty much can get now. Throughout the series so far, she has been pretty hyperactive and just all around crazy, ADD, bouncing off the walls and everything, going completely cartoony and all that. But when we see her at the beginning of this episode, she is calm. She is just solemn. She is completely like 180 of what she was before, and she's sitting on this hill that she claims is her favorite spot. And she starts talking to Yuji about death. She asks him what's it like when people die, and when he gives her a response, she's like, well, that doesn't seem maybe that bad. And then she goes into talking about how when she dies, she wants this hill that she's on to be where she's buried. And it gets really, really dark, and not dark as in like, oh, it's creepy dark, or no, dark as in like the tone just kind of goes really low, but not in a negative way. It's just the tone is down, and this is the first time we've ever seen her like this, really. The main problem I have with this episode, however, is that the transitions between the scenes are non-existent. Like, we'll have something going on, and at the end of something, boom, next scene, no transition whatsoever. That's honestly the only complaint I have for this episode. Where this episode shines is just how much when we find out what's wrong with Michiru, and I honestly don't want, even though I have the spoiler thing, I don't want to spoil what her condition is. I may have to later on when I'm doing videos or not, but right now I'm going to do my best not to give away what her condition is. But when you find out, it hits you just, oh, that's it. Oh my god, that's what makes her this. And it's just a really, really good way for them to express this character and show both sides of her. Show her how she is when she's hyper, and show her how she is when she's not hyper. And it's a really, really good way, I think. A really interesting way to get us to know about this character. There's a moment where she doesn't remember doing something to Yuji, which she kisses him at one point, and she doesn't remember doing that later in the episode. And so when she's trying to get him to say, what did I do to you? And he uses the word osculate instead of kissing. I think that's it. Yeah, osculate instead of kissing. And it's funny because the more he says that, the more she's trying to act like she knows what he's saying, but she really doesn't have any idea what it means. And so she keeps like saying stuff like, remind me what I did, show me what I did. And he's fighting it as much as he can. He's fighting like, he's like, you don't want me to do that. And when he does, he gets really close, she freaks out and runs off. And I actually feel kind of bad for her, because when you find out her condition, you realize why she doesn't remember it. You feel bad because it's like, oh god, she got really like scared and ran off and everything. Later on she was fine about it, but at that moment she runs off and she's in such a fit that she actually gets mad and yells at the cat that has been her friend since like episode 2, I think. and she yells at the cat, and the cat runs off, and then the rest of the episode is them trying to find the cat. They find the cat, and the cat has been hit by a car and is bleeding on the side of a road. And he tells her to go. He doesn't want her to see it, and she's like, okay. But then when she turns around and follows him, she sees it. And the end of the episode, through the credits, is her and him in a taxi cab trying to get to some place that can help the cat. She's feeding the cat, and the cat is just slowly dying in her arms, and it hits you so much because she's still... I don't want to spoil what she has. She's still in her like hyper mood, but now her hyper mood is depressed and all that. So when you find out what it is, it'll make more sense of what I'm trying to say. But when it hits you, just like how much she cared about this thing, and it's dying in her arms, it's the saddest thing this show has offered so far, and it really, really, really hits you. I'm sitting there watching the end credits start to go and all that as they're in the back of the car, just like, no, don't die, kitty. But yeah, episode 4, really good, and as I think back on it, maybe the lack of transitions was an intentional thing, because the transitions in the show, it'll be like, quiet scene, boom! Hyper scene that doesn't really make any sense whatsoever, then more calm scene, and then again, just, there's no like smoothing over into something, it's just immediate, like, here's one scene, chop, here's the other scene, chop, and just keep going and going. But I want to say that might have been intentional. I don't know anything about the developers behind this show, so maybe it was to symbolize what her condition is, but that could just be giving too much credit. But I'll stay optimistic and think that that's what it was going for. It kind of worked, but again, it was jarring until you figure out what's wrong. Moving on to episode 5 of this show, I'm going to have to spoil what's going on with Michiru. So if you don't want that spoiled, stop the video right now, because I'm going to spoil what her condition is. She has split personality disorder. She has multiple personalities inside of her. She switches on and off from one that's more relaxed and calm to one that's hyperactive and trying to be a goofball and everything. At the beginning of this episode, the very first thing we see is that Michiru has attempted to overdose on her medication. After she's taken to the hospital and everything, and after she gets out of it, the most everyone knows, except for, of course, the guy Yuji and the principal of the school, is that she got a really bad cold, but she obviously tried to kill herself. Throughout the first part, Yuji is constantly pestering her because he notices that the hyperactive Michiru has not come back. It's only been the more solemn Michiru who's been in control of the body and everything, and he notices that she has not switched personalities in days. When he confronts her about it, she says that the hyperactive Michiru, which I'm just going to call Blue Eyes, because when she changes personalities, her eyes switch from blue to green, blue being hyperactive and green being the more calm one. So the blue-eyed Michiru said that she is never coming back. She's gone into a very dark place and is never coming back. And after talking to her about it and pestering her about it, Yuji finally finds out that the green-eyed Michiru wants the blue-eyed Michiru to live on in the body because it's actually her body. Apparently, this is a weird situation where it doesn't fully make sense, but from a dramatic storytelling idea, it's actually really good. If you think about it logically, it's not going to make any sense, and it's actually going to be a little bit of a sidebar thing that just gets to you, but it's fiction, so you shouldn't really think about it too heavily on that. The split personality happened because Blue-Eyed Michiru had a heart failure, and when she got a heart transplant that went through and worked, the personality of the person whose heart that was, who had died, went into Michiru's body. This episode deals a lot in suicide and death, more so than I think I've really ever seen in an anime, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I have had a history involved with suicide, so it really hit me kind of hard watching this. And even though most of the episode he seems kind of creepy about it, this episode got me to really, really like Yuji. I hadn't really cared for him all that much throughout this series so far, but by this episode, I'm completely supporting this guy. He did things a little awkwardly. He did them very creepily and not really made much sense, but he came through for her really, really well. And all I can really say else about this, because I don't want to give away the sequence of events in this episode, because it gets heavy. It gets really, really fucking heavy. It's kind of scary at some points too, and very uncomfortable. And I thought it worked really efficiently for this episode. But the episode, I think, especially by the time the credits started rolling, I think what the show is doing now that we've gotten a chance to see at least most of the characters in some sort of depth, I think what we're going to be seeing now is, because this is based on a visual novel, I do want to say that, what it seems like it's going to be doing now is going through all of the main stories of the girls, because if you don't know, in a visual novel, you typically have a lot of romance options, and you choose which one you want to follow, and then you can restart the game, or go back to an earlier save point, and then follow along a different character story, find out each character's individual stories. And what it's seeming like it's going to be possibly doing is going through the stories of these girls as if somebody is playing the visual novel, following their story to the end, and then going back and then following the story, but not really going back, just switching to a different character. And I can dig it. I can dig that. That's something they kind of touched on very, very minutely in the Persona 4 anime, which I actually wish they would have touched on it more. There was only brief moments where you got to see like him and Chie, him and Yukiko and whatnot. But yeah, I can dig it. I don't really know what else to say about this episode. It hit me personally really, really deep. It might not hit some of you all that much, but as someone who has been in that kind of situation, it's really, really heavy. So give this a watch. I highly recommend it. Not much else I can say. I apologize. And also, I'm sorry for the complete shift in mood. I know that because this is going to be one video featuring episodes 4 and 5's reviews, or not reviews, first looks. And the first episode 4, I was kind of chipper and whatnot, and then I hit this episode, and it's just wow, really, really spectacular job. I'm just rambling now, so I'm gonna see you all next time, or tomorrow when supernatural battles became commonplace. So until then, everybody, peace out.